Imagine being a part of a world so powerful, so secretive, that every move, every conversation could change the course of your life forever. Now, imagine you've walked away from that world, rejecting everything it represents, only to find yourself rushing back, hoping that the very system you once denounced can protect you. Sounds like a plot from a thriller, right? Well, this is exactly what Prince Harry is experiencing right now. Stay with me because in this story, nothing is quite as it seems, and the questions at the heart of it will make you rethink everything you thought you knew about power, secrecy, and the cost of silence. Right now, as the story begins to unfold, Prince Harry has made a surprising return to the UK. But make no mistake, this is not some casual visit, nor is it a quest for healing or reconciliation. This is a man who once made a dramatic and deliberate decision to sever every tie with his family, burning every bridge behind him as he walked away. And now, after everything, he is rushing back across those very same bridges, which he once declared he would never cross again. Think about that for a moment. The same man who once stood before cameras, publicly accusing his own family of cruelty, betrayal, and neglect, is now facing an entirely different reality. This is the same Prince Harry who signed multi-million-dollar deals, using his platform to publicly air his grievances with the royal family, detailing how broken and toxic he believed the system to be. This is the same Harry who walked away from the privileges of royal protection, royal silence, and royal power, the very things that defined his position, insisting that he didn't need any of it, until now. People don't return to places they despise unless something catastrophic has gone terribly wrong. They don't rush back to institutions they once labeled as toxic unless those institutions, which they once rejected, are the only ones strong enough and reliable enough to offer them the protection they so desperately need. This is not about seeking forgiveness or some desire for closure. It's not about pride, and it certainly isn't about nostalgia or sentimental longing for the past. No, this is about panic. Whatever it is that Harry is facing right now, it's something far beyond the grasp of a California publicist to spin. It's not something that can be smoothed over in an interview, swept away with a polished PR statement, or explained away in a podcast. It's much deeper than that. When someone who has spent years loudly rejecting silence, publicly stating how damaging and suffocating it is, suddenly yearns for it, it speaks volumes. It suggests they are terrified of what could happen when the talking finally begins, and in this case, the talking has already started. Harry's fear is no longer hypothetical. It's real, and it is coming to light in ways that can't be ignored. But the roots of Harry's fear don't lie in California or even in the heart of the UK. No, they stretch far beyond the borders of both places, thousands of miles away, inside a prison cell in Florida. This is where Ghislaine Maxwell, the once powerful socialite, is now serving a 20-year federal sentence. Her empire, once vast and influential, has crumbled beyond recognition. The network of power she wielded has evaporated, and her future is now firmly contained within the grim, unforgiving walls of concrete and razor wire. This, in many ways, is exactly what makes her so dangerous now. The very fact that she has lost everything, including her power, gives her something even more potent. Nothing left to lose. People remain silent when silence still serves them. When they still have connections to powerful people, when they still have leverage in certain situations, when they still hold hope for the future. But Ghislaine Maxwell has none of that anymore. She has lost everything she once had, and it's precisely why she has begun to speak. The narrative, still unfolding, suggests that she has started talking, not in hushed whispers, not in vague hints or ambiguous statements, but with full transparency, speaking actual names, real names. The names of powerful people who once moved through the same exclusive, elite circles she and Jeffrey Epstein controlled, and who, by all appearances, were complicit in maintaining the system she helped run. When someone like Maxwell decides to speak, the consequences are far-reaching. The fallout doesn't begin in the realm of social media or tabloid gossip. No, it starts behind closed doors, in the form of private phone calls, emergency meetings, last-minute flights being booked, and decisions being made at a lightning-fast pace. These are the kinds of quiet, strategic movements that occur when the stakes are this high. Testimony doesn't care about reputations or the carefully curated fairy tales that have been built around certain individuals for years. It doesn't care about protecting the powerful or shielding the well-connected. Once words are spoken in private, once names are named behind those closed doors, those words do not stay hidden for long. The truth, when it's revealed, starts to ripple outward, touching everyone it may affect. Maxwell's decision to speak has already set off a chain reaction, one that no amount of PR strategy can stop. The ripple effect is already making its way through the corridors of power, and it's only a matter of time before those ripples reach even the most protected corners of the world. The consequences of those names being revealed will extend far beyond just Maxwell herself. They will lead to further questions, investigations, and inevitable consequences for those who were once untouchable. The truth is, no matter how much anyone tries to downplay it, the damage caused by testimony once it begins can never be undone. And this is the reality that Prince Harry is now facing. His return to the UK is not about seeking redemption, nor is it about coming to terms with his past. It's about understanding that the powerful institutions he once rejected may be the only ones that can protect him from the fallout that is now coming his way. The world of royal protection, silence, and power that he once discarded might be the very thing that can save him in the end. And that is the painful, inconvenient truth he is now grappling with. Because sometimes, the price of rejecting the very system that protected you is far steeper than anyone could have imagined. Somewhere hidden deep within those quiet conversations, one name allegedly triggered a ripple so powerful, so far-reaching, that it spread all the way to the peaceful and secluded hills of Montecito, California. And in that precise moment, what had once seemed like a mere issue of gossip or rumors, a passing conversation in a world full of whispers, stopped being something trivial. This wasn't a fleeting problem confined to celebrity tabloids or media gossip columns. It turned into something far more significant, a survival issue that would affect not only those directly involved but ripple outward, threatening to shake foundations and expose secrets that had been carefully guarded for years. To understand why the release of those names is so vital, and why the world that Jeffrey Epstein built is so crucial to this narrative, one must first comprehend the intricate and shadowy workings of Epstein's world, a world that was as much about control as it was about wealth and power. Epstein wasn't just another billionaire with a flashy lifestyle. No, he was a figurehead in a far darker, more sinister network. He was someone who knew exactly how to navigate the world of power, influence, and secrecy. And Ghislaine Maxwell, she was more than just a socialite living among the elite. She was a gatekeeper, a master manipulator who controlled access to some of the most powerful and influential people on the planet. She understood precisely who belonged in which room, who deserved a seat at the table, and perhaps just as importantly, who remained outside those circles, kept in the shadows, invisible, ignored. Maxwell had an intimate understanding of where the most influential men in the world gathered, where their meetings took place, how they moved, and most critically, who was strategically placed near them. This wasn't about the glittering lights of Hollywood or the flashy spectacle of red carpets. No, this was a world that thrived in private rooms, in the hush of discreet dealings, where power wasn't flaunted but quietly exercised. It was a world where nothing was recorded, no cameras captured the action, and no papers were left behind to trace the delicate web of influence being spun. And this is exactly why proximity to power mattered so much. Not because everyone present was committing crimes or breaking laws, but because being in that room meant witnessing things, seeing things that others might never know about. It meant hearing conversations that were not meant for the public's ear, witnessing behavior that could later be interpreted in an entirely different light. It meant noticing patterns and associations that could hold the key to untold stories. What's more, memory, unlike a camera or a recording, doesn't simply disappear over time. It doesn't vanish when people walk away from those powerful rooms or move on to new chapters in their lives. Memory waits. It lingers, sometimes dormant for years, until the right moment arrives for it to resurface. And when it does, it brings with it the weight of everything it has stored up, patiently held in place by time. When the abuse was happening, people were moving through these environments. These rooms where the most powerful, influential, and dangerous individuals operated. They weren't necessarily accused of doing anything wrong. They weren't the ones actively perpetuating the abuse. But they were present, and that presence itself means something in the legal and ethical world. Simply being there, moving through those paces and witnessing the circumstances of what was happening can sometimes be enough to raise uncomfortable questions. People who didn't directly contribute to the wrongdoing still hold knowledge, hold pieces of the story that may become relevant as the truth comes to light. This was the kind of world that Ghislaine Maxwell helped to create. A world that on the surface appeared to be glamorous, elegant, and elite. But beneath that carefully crafted facade, it was dangerous. It was a world of secrecy and manipulation, where the powerful were protected by the very silence that kept the truth hidden. For decades, silence protected the powerful. It kept them above reproach, shielded them from consequences, and allowed them to operate without fear of exposure. But now, that silence has stopped serving its purpose. The protective veil that once shielded the corrupt and the complicit is beginning to unravel, and the names that Maxwell has begun to release are forcing everything into the light. The consequences of those revelations are not something that can be contained within the confines of social media or scandalous headlines. No, this is much bigger than that. The fallout will come from behind closed doors, in the form of private phone calls, urgent meetings, last-minute flights, and decisions being made with an almost frantic sense of urgency. The legal ramifications will stretch far and wide, as the testimony that Maxwell offers will have repercussions on people who believe themselves untouchable. The world Maxwell helped build may have looked like an exclusive playground for the wealthy and powerful, but it was a dangerous, secretive world where abuse was allowed to fester. And the danger wasn't just in the actions of the abusers, it was in the systemic silence that protected them. Silence that kept everything hidden, maintained the status quo, and allowed those at the top to continue unchecked. That silence, however, has now stopped serving its purpose. As more names are revealed, the ripple effect will only grow stronger, and the power that was once so carefully guarded will be exposed for all to see. Maxwell's decision to speak is not a minor development. It's not simply a piece of gossip or idle chatter. It's a turning point, a moment that could potentially unravel a network of secrecy and power that has held sway for decades. Once the names begin to surface, the truth will no longer be something that can be contained or dismissed as hearsay. The individuals implicated will no longer be able to hide behind the shield of silence and wealth. The truth, once it has been spoken, will continue to reverberate across the corridors of power, shaking the foundations of the empire that was built on secrecy, manipulation, and fear. The silence that once protected them will now be their greatest threat, and as the truth unfolds, it will expose the very world they fought so hard to keep hidden. Take Soho House, for example. On the surface, it may appear as nothing more than an exclusive, harmless gathering place. Stylish rooms, soft lighting, creative people sipping cocktails, and pretending they aren't networking. A private club meant for artists, filmmakers, and designers, where one could escape the chaos of the outside world and rub shoulders with like-minded individuals. That's the glossy, well-curated image they want to project, the one designed to make it feel like an inspiring oasis for creatives. But beneath that polished exterior, Soho House was much more than just a place to socialize. It was a corridor, a quiet, hidden passageway connecting worlds that would never otherwise intersect in the public eye. It was a meeting point where Hollywood's glitz collided with the cold, calculated world of finance. A place where new money, eager to make its mark, brushed shoulders with old power, holding on to traditions and influence that were much harder to attain. It was a space where those who craved attention, constantly seeking the spotlight, came face to face with people who went to great lengths to avoid it. deals weren't made with flashing lights and applause here. No, they were understood in the hushed silence of private spaces, where conversations were measured and calculated, where the exchange of ideas was as much about what wasn't said as what was. Openings weren't just random parties thrown for the sake of celebration. They were meticulously curated events, each designed to foster the right kind of energy and set the right tone. They made sure that, when the right people arrived, the atmosphere was charged with just the right amount of exclusivity and gravitas. Influence doesn't happen on red carpets, not in front of cameras and flashing lights. It happens in these intimate, private spaces where everything is understood, yet nothing is officially recorded. Here, people's power wasn't about what they showed to the world. It was about what they controlled behind closed doors. And this is where the story begins to take a significant, unexpected turn. Long before Meghan Markle ever stepped out onto the palace balconies or made royal headlines, she was already moving through this corridor of power. According to reports, she was regularly flown internationally to attend Soho House events, including one particularly notable gathering in Istanbul in 2015. But Meghan wasn't the star of the event. She wasn't the one everyone was eagerly waiting for. She wasn't the one drawing in the crowds or demanding the spotlight. Instead, she played a quieter, almost invisible role, one that insiders would call social filler. Now, this term might sound dismissive or even insulting, but it's important to understand that it's not. The role of a social filler is highly functional. It's someone who is there to fill empty seats, to smooth over awkward conversations, to make a room feel alive and energetic before the true power players arrive. It's a role that doesn't draw attention to itself, but one that carries with it access to influential circles. Being a social filler isn't about being the center of attention. It's about making sure the atmosphere remains inviting, seamless, and effortless, all while quietly staying in the background. But there is undeniable value in this role, and it opens doors to exclusive spaces and people. What caught people's attention was Meghan's mere presence in these spaces. It wasn't about her being there, seated among the others. No, what raised eyebrows was the lifestyle that came with it. The international flights, the luxury accommodations, the constant movement across the globe, these were the things that stood out. It wasn't just a one-off either. This wasn't the occasional trip or special event. Meghan's life was defined by consistent jet-setting, luxury travel, and constant movement in elite circles. She was traveling not just once or twice, but regularly, as if this was a lifestyle she was now accustomed to, rather than one that could be explained away by occasional work commitments. And this is where the math didn't quite add up. At the time, Meghan Markle was a supporting actress on a cable TV show. Comfortable, yes, but living the high-flying, elite lifestyle she was leading. Comfortable, not so much. No one accused her of anything illicit, of course. No one dared make such a direct accusation, but people began to take notice. They didn't gossip about her, they didn't confront her, and they certainly didn't pry. They simply observed. They saw what was happening, and quietly they remembered. There was an awareness in the air, a recognition that things weren't lining up as they should. Something didn't make sense, but at the time, there was no need to demand an explanation. Instead, the memory of her presence in those spaces, living that lifestyle, was quietly filed away in the minds of those who observed. Memory doesn't demand immediate answers or quick conclusions. It waits. When something doesn't quite fit into the bigger picture, the mind doesn't panic or seek immediate clarity. Instead, it lets the information sit there, biding its time. And then, years later, when that same woman who once moved through those exclusive corridors finds herself standing beside a prince, wearing a title, waving from a palace balcony, those old memories, the ones that had seemed insignificant at the time, suddenly snap into focus. The context that was once missing now falls into place, and the pieces of the puzzle start to align. The memories that had remained dormant for so long now find new relevance. They reframe themselves. What once seemed like casual observations now take on a different light. The way people viewed her, the questions that lingered, all suddenly become far more significant. What seemed like an insignificant detail at the time, her presence at those events, now becomes part of a much larger narrative. What was once a quiet, almost invisible part of her story is now central to the unfolding drama. The dots are connecting, and what once appeared to be a small, inconsequential detail has now become a key element in a much bigger story. Once royalty enters the picture, the past doesn't simply disappear, it becomes something to be managed. People who once stayed silent begin to replay the rooms they were in, the trips they had heard about, and the connections they didn't question at the time. This isn't driven by malice or jealousy, it's driven by logic. The past doesn't remain buried forever, especially not in the royal world, where everything is scrutinized and everything has a consequence. It surfaces when the right moment arrives, and the questions don't even need to be spoken out loud to carry weight. They linger, hanging in the air with a new context, and suddenly old memories, once insignificant, now carry newfound relevance. This is far from a unique story. Royal families have dealt with inconvenient pasts before. But they don't pretend those pasts never exist. Instead, they simply manage them quietly. Take Princess Sofia of Sweden, for example. Before marrying into the Swedish royal family, she had a well-documented past in glamour modeling and was part of elite party circuits that linked her to Epstein's world as early as 2005. Once she became royal, that past didn't vanish. It wasn't erased. It simply stopped being discussed. The institution absorbed it, buried it, and moved on. Then there met Marie of Norway, who publicly apologized in 2019 for maintaining a friendship with Jeffrey Epstein, calling it poor judgment. The apology was made, the story was closed, and the institution moved on. This isn't about shame, it's about systems, about how royal institutions absorb and contain history. They bury uncomfortable truths beneath ceremony, duty, and silence. The goal of the institution isn't truth, it's stability. Royal families have learned that, once they control the narrative, they can keep the past from disrupting their present. Once you begin to understand this pattern, Meghan Markle's story stops feeling like an isolated scandal and starts to look familiar. Not scandalous in the traditional sense, but strategic. The royal family is adept at managing pasts, shaping them, and burying them for the sake of stability. Meghan's presence in the royal world, much like others before her, follows this strategy. Her past is woven into a much larger, carefully constructed framework of influence and control. The shift from quiet curiosity to something much more serious came during the civil case brought by Virginia Giuffre, the woman whose testimony played a central role in shattering Prince Andrew's public standing. Meghan Markle's name, too, almost entered the courtroom. But not as a defendant. She wasn't accused of any crimes, but as a witness. That distinction matters immensely. Witnesses aren't accused of crimes. They're simply people who might have seen something, heard something, or been present during key moments that later become significant. Although Meghan wasn't called to testify, the damage had already been done. Investigators with subpoena power had looked at her history, at the connections she had with Epstein's world, and they believed there was enough there to warrant further investigation. And once that happens, curiosity turns into risk. The inquiries began, and what was once a whisper in the dark became something that could not be ignored. The risk was now tangible. If anyone still thinks this is all about gossip, they only need to look at what happened to Prince Andrew. His downfall wasn't caused by sensational tabloid stories or rumors. He lost everything because of testimony. Because when questions were asked under oath, the fairy tale he had constructed collapsed instantly. That's how real scandals end. Not with headlines, not with public outcry, but with official records. Once sworn statements are made, once the truth begins to come out, there's no turning back. Prince Andrew became the cautionary tale for royal families everywhere. A stark reminder that silence can protect you for years, even decades, but it can only shield you for so long. And once the legal process begins, no amount of PR wizardry can undo the damage. The institutions that once thrived on secrecy and silence become vulnerable to the truth. This is the lesson Prince Harry understands all too well. Once testimony begins, It doesn't care who you are or who your wife is. It doesn't care about titles or wealth. And that's when panic shifts from being an emotional, dramatic reaction to something far more calculated and logical. When you realize that the very system you once rejected is the same one that knows how to navigate these waters, you understand that your options are limited. Harry didn't return to the UK for forgiveness, nor did he come back out of nostalgia or sentimentality for the past. He returned because the royal institution understands how to survive scandals that don't end with tabloid gossip, but with testimony. They have lawyers, fixers, and a history of protocols, centuries of experience in turning potential catastrophes into manageable situations. It's a system designed for survival, not for truth, and it's a system Harry walked away from. He called it cruel. He called it toxic. He dismantled it publicly and decisively. Now, for the first time, he may need that very institution more than ever. Because if Ghislaine Maxwell continues to speak, this story won't end with public opinion pieces or media spin. It will end with questions asked under oath, and those questions will lead to an entirely new set of consequences. There is one question that will hang over everything. What did Harry know? And when did he know it? If Harry knew about Meghan's past, then he was complicit in protecting it. If he didn't, then he walked blindly into a situation that now threatens everything he has built: his title, his family, his public image. Either way, the fairy tale is over. This story has never been about jealousy, tabloids, or gossip. It has always been about who was in the room, what was said in private, and how long silence was allowed to protect power. The royal family has built its strength on managing the truth, controlling the narrative, and burying the past. But the silence is no longer enough. The truth is surfacing, and once it does, there is no telling how far it will reach or who it will bring down along the way. But now, for the first time, he may need that very institution more than ever. Because if Ghislaine Maxwell continues to speak, this story won't end with public opinion pieces or media spin. It will end with questions asked under oath, and those questions will lead to an entirely new set of consequences. What did Harry know? And when did he know it? If you want to keep track of this story as it unfolds, make sure to hit that subscribe button, like this video, and share it with anyone who needs to hear this story. You don't want to miss out on the next big twist. What happens next could change everything we know about the royal family, and I'll be here to break it down for you, step by step. Stay tuned.